Some people have their other hobbies. Some people do cars, Barbies, whatever. Mine is fragrance.
Super excited about our guest today, Jason Montgomery.
My parents, my dad had a love for fragrance, so I got it naturally through them. I remember my dad on his counter, he would always have bottles that don't look like they do now. Bottles were like old, big horses, glass bottles, cars, kind of weird objects. And I remember seeing his bottles just sitting around. Let's just say, for example, you have that big boardroom meeting. Obviously, you want to look the part, first of all. You want to dress the part. You want to close that deal. But you want to wear a fragrance that's also going to close the deal. I'll give you my spray routine for this morning. I went 2 on my neck here. I went 2 behind my ears. And I did just 1 spray on kind of my shirt.
Welcome to Thread Talks, where we stitch together tales of style and substance. Join us as we chat with industry icons, master tailors, innovators, and business experts. We'll discuss how to look and feel your best. Explore how fashion shapes our lives, the artistry behind custom clothing, and the deep stories woven into the fabric of our identities. Here's your host, Peter Roberti of Adrian Jules.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Thread Talks podcast. Super excited about our guest today, Jason Montgomery, specialist in fragrance connoisseur. Jason, welcome to the show.
Peter, it's my pleasure, my honor to be here with you on this special podcast today. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah, this is going to be great, man. So thank you again for being a part of it. And man, it's, as I've been kind of following you, it's been what great stuff and good tips that you got. I just can't wait to dive into this, but kind of before we jump into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the audience and, how you got to where you're at now.
So as you just said, I'm Jason Montgomery. As you may know, I'm Jason on Instagram.
Nice.
I'm 36, born and raised here in South Carolina, lovely state of South Carolina. Still here. All my family's here. So fragrance for me, I learned very early, just to be honest. My parents, my dad had a love for fragrance, so I got it naturally through them. I remember my dad on his counter, he would always have bottles that don't look like they do now. Bottles were like old, big horses, glass bottles, cars, kind of weird objects. And I remember seeing his bottles just sitting around. My mom would, every time she went out, she would do her little spritz routine. And so I always kind of watch them, and obviously you kind of become what you see, right? So
Sure.
That was kind of my whole introduction to fragrance, to seeing it through my parents and loved ones.
Wow. So yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what, so that's how you got into it. Like, what's obviously you're still passionate about it. Why are you so passionate about fragrance? I mean, I feel like that's kind of, it's just different. It's very, very niche oriented. I'm just curious what's drawing you to it so much.
Well, I guess some people have their other hobbies. Some people do cars, Barbies, whatever. Mine is fragrance. So I've always, like I said, always have seen fragrance in my home, always had a love for fragrance. Had my own collection when I was in high schoul.
Did you really?
Yes. Started out with Axe body spray, the normal things.
Yeah.
Graduated to Nautica Voyage, those kind of fragrances. And so I always had a love for fragrance. Around COVID, I really dove in deep, sitting around the house, nothing to do, bored out of your mind. So I always kind of looked at my collection and I saw how I could add to it. I saw how I could make it better. So I really dove in hard.
That's interesting to hear your fragrance, wording it as like a collection. That's fascinating. Okay.
It is. Yes. It's a collection. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So, all right. So let me just ask you a question. If we could back up 2 steps, how does one determine, like, so say if I'm going into, buy fragrance, I wanted to get something. How do I determine what to choose? Like, what's the most important things that I should be thinking about when I'm choosing a fragrance?
So a few things you should probably think about. Number one is going to be your palate, your personal palate. And that's all it means. What do you like? There's going to be some notes that I may like that you won't like, and vice versa. So that's going to be the first thing is kind of what do you like? And I don't encourage people to really blind buy because it can get very, very expensive, but play around with your palette, kind of explore different notes and fragrances, kind of see what you gravitate towards. Obviously the second thing is going to be where you are. Where do you work? What do you do for a living? That kind of is really going to cater to what you're going to be buying. For me, this is pretty much how I come to work every day. So
sure.
I have those fragrances that are very gentleman-like, very quality fragrances. I'm around people most of the day, so some of my fragrances have a mass appeal quality to them. That simply means that they're going to remember me for how I smell. They're going to remember me for smelling good.
What did you call that? What is it called? A mass
appealing. That basically means you're going to wear something that appeals to everyone for the most part.
So someone in your, so again, so let's dissect this a little bit. So somebody like myself who's going to be, around people a lot, what would you recommend then? So what would be, I'm just curious what you might recommend for someone like myself that if I'm wearing suits and stuff like that, what would I typically gravitate towards, you think?
Two that come to mind, and one I know you've probably heard of, and one of the hottest fragrances in the fragrance community is Creed Aventus. It has that gentleman-like quality to it, but still smells very, very good, and everyone around you is going to be able to enjoy it. Another one that I thought about within that same house is Royal Oud. It's one that has a mass appeal quality to it, but it also has that gentleman-like quality to it for guys like us that's going to be wearing suits most of the time. So two that came to mind off the top of my head.
Cool. Okay. And then, all right. So is there anything else that I should be thinking about as I'm deciding what type of fragrance that I might select?
The third thing you're probably going to want to think about is your climate. Where are you located? I'm located here in South Carolina, so for the most part, it's going to be pretty warm. So I'm not going to want to wear those fragrances that are real dark, real heavy, because it gets pretty hot here. You're going to wear some fragrances that are a little bit light, a little bit more airy, a little more refreshing. So the climate is going to dictate also how you purchase your fragrances and what you choose.
Okay, so interesting. I've never heard fragrance talk. I've never heard fragrance spoken like that. So dark.
It's a science, man. It's a whole science.
Yeah. So, all right. So wait, elaborate a little bit more. What do you mean by dark and heavy? Let me just explore that for one more second. What does that mean to you?
So let's take two dark and heavy notes. Clove and cinnamon, for example, just two that I thought off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Those are going to be notes that are associated with maybe fall and winter. Those real kind of dark, real heavy notes, as opposed to some citrus-based fragrances that you're going to wear in the spring and summer. More light, refreshing, airy notes.
I like that. Okay, so what you're saying is that we really should be, depending on the season, we really should be wearing different types of fragrance. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Yes. And the reason for that is, in the wintertime, you want to wear those kind of, like I said, darker fragrances because that cold air is going to help those fragrances to stay on you a little bit longer. In the summertime, obviously those light and airy fragrances, they're very light. They're very airy. They're going to just wipe away a lot more quicker in the warmer months than opposed to the colder months.
That's pretty cool, man. That's interesting. That's fascinating. Okay. So
science.
yeah, I love that. So, all right. So what about how much, I guess, what about the people that you're seeing? How do you personally, depending on who you might be meeting with or who you might be seeing, wear different types of fragrances?
Yes. So I want to give you an example.
Okay.
Let's just say, for example, you have that big boardroom meeting. Obviously, you want to look the part. First of all, you want to dress the part if you want to close that deal. But you want to wear a fragrance that's also going to close the deal. Now, you don't want to wear anything that's going to be too obnoxious, too strong, too potent. You want to wear that deal closing fragrance so they'll remember you by what you wore Not, oh, that guy came in here, he was too strong, he wore the wrong fragrance. Don't invite him back. Don't close the deal.
Yeah. So, oh, wow. That's, I was going to ask you, like, how do you connect clothing to fragrance? Well, I guess that's kind of right.
They go hand in hand.
They go
to
hand
me,
in hand.
hand in hand to me. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. What do you mean by that? Why do you feel like they go hand in hand so much?
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to give you an example. So today I'm wearing this blue suit, right? Navy blue suit. Okay. The fragrance of choice I decided to wear is called Axton Gerard Brilliant Blue. You see the play on words there? So when I post, people are going to remember, oh yeah, he wore that fragrance, Axton Gerard Paris Brilliant Blue, but he also had on the nice three-piece suit as well. So they're going to make that connotation with the brilliant blue fragrance and the suit that I'm wearing. So you see how fragrances kind of go hand in hand.
I like that.
Any deal on anything with fragrances and fashion.
I like that. Let me ask you a question because I heard you, we could just go back two steps here. I heard you were talking about your dad and your parents, how they had big like cars and, different, the bottles were a lot, almost like art kind of, it sounded like.
Yes.
Do they do that now? And if not, like, why do you feel like they did that back then and they don't do that as much now? Like what, cause it feels like that, stuck in your mind, like that's still obviously, you're still talking about it today.
So some houses I've noticed are getting more back to more creative presentation, as we call it.
Okay.
And presentation, obviously, to some and to me myself is very, very important. The shape of the bottle, the atomizer, how it sprays, the box you get it in. Some of the boxes you actually keep those boxes because they're designed so well and created so well. So I've seen some houses getting back into bringing more creativity into their bottles, into their caps, their atomizers. Yes, it's a big deal now. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So let me ask you a question as you're kind of talking about the way that it sprays and so on and so forth. Is there, I've heard a bunch of different things. You got to put it up behind your ear. You got to put it on your on your wrist. They're like, where should I be doing this? Help me out here. Where should I be doing this?
It's debatable. That's a big topic of debate in FragCom, as we call it. So I would always say spray your pulse points, just as you illustrated. So you're right. You're around the money here. So your neck typically is going to be your pulse point, on your pulse points. Behind your ears, that can always be another one. Your wrist, absolutely. You can definitely spray your wrist. So for me, I'll give you my spray routine for this morning. I went 2 on my neck here. I went 2 behind my ears, and I did just 1 spray on kind of my shirt.
Interesting.
That was my spray routine. Now, just to kind of add into that, you have to be very, very careful when you're spraying on clothing. And I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit.
Yeah, I was literally going to ask that with, spraying on clothing.
Segue, huh?
Yeah, I'm curious as you say that, like, one is, should we even be doing that? And 2, if so, like, I'm curious if a fragrance will smell different if I do it on like a linen shirt or if I do it on a wool shirt or if I'm doing it on a cashmere, like, would it smell, would it react different or smell different? Like, I'm just curious if that's, if that's the case there.
So typically, I spray on my clothes because it's going to last a little bit longer on fabric. The fabric is going to grab and absorb that fragrance for the most part.
Okay.
Now, we talk about maybe longevity of a fragrance and it lasts things long as it could. 3 main reasons for why it's going to last and why it may not. So you have what you called an EDT, which is the concentration of the fragrance. You may have seen that terminology, eau de toilette. Okay. You have the EDT, which is an eau de parfum. And then you have the you have the straight de parfum. That's going to be your strongest concentration of a fragrance. And the difference between all 3 is the oil level of concentration. So the reason I said that earlier is if you have an straight de parfum and you spray it on your shirt, it may leave an oily residue or an oily look to your shirt. So you have to be very careful when you're spraying higher concentration of fragrances.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's so that depending on the concentration will dictate how long the smell of the fragrance will last.
Yes. And typically your EDPs and your straight D parfums are going to be your long lasting fragrances because they have a higher oil concentration.
Okay. And how does that, do people, when I'm purchasing a fragrance, is that something that is desirable? Like, do I want, and does that warrant the price point of the fragrance? Like, if it lasts longer, I'm willing to pay more, or is it, well, in certain cases I don't really want it to last too long. I'm just curious around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot one, parfum is also another concentration in there as well. But yeah, that's, typically the concentration is going to dictate your price. Now, if you get a parfum or an straight D parfum, you're going to pay pretty much of a higher penny as opposed to an EDT or EDP. So yes, that's going to dictate your price and your longevity of your fragrance.
Gotcha. Okay.
Absolutely. You're on the money.
Interesting. All right. Let me ask you another question. So, how important does, the gentleman's, it sounds like, the weather's important, or where they might be, geographically. What about their skin composition? How important does that play a role in the fragrance that they might choose?
That's very, very important. And for the most part, most people think that you just spray it on and go, spray it on, go out the door. But you want to adopt a good skin routine to help your fragrance last. So what does that look like? You want to use a good body oil. You want to use a good body lotion. Maybe right after you're out the shower, apply your lotion, apply your oil, have a good skincare regimen on top of what you're wearing. Then you're going to apply your fragrance. That's going to help absorb that fragrance. It's going to help to give that fragrance some sillage and help others around you smell what you're wearing too.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah, skin chemistry is very important, and skincare routine is also very important.
Yeah, I was going to ask if, from a body spray, like if we should be doing, if we should be doing that at all, or just that I got to believe that's going to impact the way that the fragrance is actually supposed to smell,
Absolutely.
or the lotion that we put on is all going to have an impact on it.
Absolutely. And you want to find a skincare routine or a lotion or oil that closely relates to the fragrances that you're wearing too. You don't want to get a lotion that smells totally opposite of what you're wearing, because they're going to be fighting each other all day long. So you want to get something that's kind of closely related to what you're wearing most of the time.
Cool. Do you feel like do you re-up on spraying throughout the day, or no? It's just one and done in the morning. That's your routine and you're done.
And I'm glad you asked that question, Peter. And again, it depends on the concentration of your fragrance. If you're wearing an straight D parfum or parfum, you may not need to. But if you're wearing an eau de parfum or maybe EDT, usually if I'm wearing one that's concentration around lunchtime, I usually re-up. So around 12 or 1 is usually when I reapply. If I'm going out for lunch, coming back to the office, that kind of thing.
Cool.
So the concentration really dictates a lot.
Love it. Nice, man. Well, listen, it was awesome. I mean, what a treat, man. Just talking to you, learning more about this, I think was
Pleasure.
Awesome. Even myself, I learned a ton of stuff around fragrances and the connection with clothing and when to wear it, when not to wear it. So this was good, man.
It's a whole science, man. It's a whole science.
I know. It's sweet, man. This was great. And, super grateful that you took the time to talk,
Thank you for having
time
me.
with us. So it was good, man. It was great. So Thank you.
It was my pleasure, Peter. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome, man. Well, cheers again. Thank you so much. And we will, we'll connect with you soon.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Let's do it again.
Awesome. Cheers, man.
That wraps up another episode of Thread Talks. To dive deeper into the stories and expertise shared today, make sure to check out the show notes for more about our distinguished guests and the exceptional craftsmanship at Adrian Jules Custom Clothier. Loved what you heard? Don't forget to hit 5 stars, leave us a review, and remember, dress to impress today. When you look great, you feel great.